Hello everyone, I'm Cloudcraft, and welcome back to Rimworld. So after last time, I realized I actually want to set my base up here and then expand down to this area. So I'm going to actually cancel all of the work that I was doing. So since last time was basically a how to start introduction, I'm going to explain a bit more in depth. I have a few priorities right now for what I want to deal with. I want to get my people shelter, I want to get them some basic furniture and living arrangements, and then I want to start creating means of producing things and get some defenses set up. So everything is in service of those right now. So before I unpause the game, because this nice little convenient shack here is already in existence, I'm going to go to the Orders tab in the Architect and claim that. So now I own this, the game knows I own it. And I am going to put a stockpile zone just outside of that structure. I'm actually going to set it up so they will make a door right there. And then I'll create my first stockpile zone right outside. And before I queue up any other construction, I'm going to let my people who are currently throwing up from crypto sweep sickness I'm going to let them drag stuff over there. Also, I need to delete that other stockpile. It's been a couple days since I recorded the last one, so let me just double check. Yes, everybody here is capable of hauling. So while they do that, I'm just going to speed up time a bit, because that takes a little time. But my main priorities here are I want them to have an enclosed shelter and beds. Sorry, I have, when I play on my own, I tend to pause the game a lot, and I'm trying to kick that habit for the purpose of this playthrough so that things will progress faster. Basically, I want to get this building enclosed so that my people will build a roof in it, and then I want to get them all places to sleep before the night comes. But first I'm going to let them drag some things over to the stockpile. Up here, by the way, is the learning helper. If you are new to the game, this can be very helpful in teaching you about things you haven't figured out, and it responds to you doing things to determine whether or not you've figured them out. Okay, that should be most of the stuff. So now I need to make beds. That is under furniture, and I could just create these basic sleeping spots, which aren't very comfortable, but your people will sleep there. But instead, I'm going to make beds. And for now, I'm just gonna basically make a barracks for everybody. They don't particularly like this, but it's very quick and easy to do, and it's not horrible. What are you doing? You are cloud watching. Yeah, so this is actually a good point to point out the Needs tab. Whenever you select one of your people, they have a bunch of different tabs. The Character tab shows you their skills and their traits. And then there's the Needs tab, which is kind of the core of the whole game. Okay, it's not the core, but is an essential component, and a lot of the things you do will revolve around this tab. Essentially, the way this tab works is you have all of these general modifications to your mood, and mood is ultimately what matters here above all of the other things. So basically, if your mood gets too low, essentially below one of these ticks, there's a chance of your character having a mental break, and how extreme that is and how likely it is depends upon where their thresholds for mental breaks are and where their mood is. And there's only a chance. They won't necessarily have one right away. But mental breaks are generally bad things that you want to avoid. So contributing to the Moods tab, you have all of these various modifiers, some of which are based on their situation or environment. Like, when your colony doesn't have any real shelter, you have the extremely low expectations modifier, which is a big mood boost. And then new colony optimism when people first land, which lasts for the first few days, to just keep your people from going insane right off the bat. And then in addition to all of these environmental things, you also have each of these tabs, which contributes to their mood. These 3 tabs, food, joy, and rest, are all basically needs which will tick down over time. And if they drop too low, you get negatives. And with joy, if it's high enough, you get positives. Food and rest will also cause health problems if they go low and stay low. These 3 are basically just desires, and these, you may notice there's a little white arrow under each of the bars. There's also one under mood. The way that these bars work is the arrow represents it essentially represents how comfortable, how beautiful, how spacious the area you're in is right now. And their comfort, beauty, and space needs will move towards that arrow, whether it's higher or lower. And mood works in a similar way, so it doesn't just suddenly jump, it gradually moves towards whatever it's set at. Okay, and I should actually keep them working on stuff so they're not just being useless, because them not doing things is generally going to be bad for them and for me. So I'm going to get them to make a table for them to eat off of. This, of course, is just going to be a temporary little dwelling, just for now, and later on I may deconstruct this, or I may turn it into a prison or something. So, actually, they're probably just doing their own things right now. Oh, I want to unrestrict these things so they'll gather them up and put them in the stockpiles. And I also want to create a sleeping spot for that dog. Animal sleeping spot. And I'm going to put that outside specifically because animals have a thing they do where they create more dirt and filth than humans do, and especially early on, keeping them from being in the main indoor areas is generally a good idea, so you don't have to deal with that stuff. Alright. So we're building that table. Pretty soon my people are going to be going to sleep. But let's see, what are... Oh, right, I almost forgot. I also want to give them a torch so that they have light inside of this building, because they'll get a mood debuff if they don't have light. Notice, by the way, how people are using the road. Different tiles have different walk speeds and a few other things. So if I shrink the architect down and you look in this lower left corner here, as I mouse over the tiles, you can see how it gives you some information on what you're mousing over. Alright, so now they're asleep. I'm going to fast forward things. And while they're asleep, I'll also set up a few other things. So I need... There are some activities they'll do on their own that will give them joy, but it's also good to have things that will give them joy lying around. But I actually need more wood if I want to build that out of wood, so I'm going to look for some trees that are totally grown. I don't have to limit myself to totally grown trees, but this is a way I've found early on to vastly improve not just the sustainability, but also the efficiency of work, since it takes time to cut those trees down and you want to get the most out of each one. So yeah, I'm gonna put down this blueprint for this horseshoes pin. You know what? Let's put it right on the road for now. We can move that later. I also, let's see, what work are people good at again? Do I want you on growing? Probably not. Usually, for most work, it's good to have a small number of specialists doing it as opposed to a large number of people who are just decent at it. So I actually want to start growing food relatively soon. But before I do that... See, normally the first thing I'd be building is going to production and building a simple research bench. But because none of my people are researchers, I am not doing that this time. So we've got a fair number of days worth of food sitting here, but that gets gone through pretty fast and it takes time to grow food. We can also, of course, forage it from these bushes and such. I'm actually going to tell them to cut down some trees in bulk, or chop wood in bulk, so that they can clear up this fertile ground and use it. So, as I was saying before, the tabs are roughly left to right order of priority. The architect tab is where you tell people, hey, jobs need to be done. The work tab is where you determine what jobs people are actually allowed to do. And here you can see in each little box here, if you mouse over it, it will tell you how much skill they have and what the skill is being used for. But you also notice the little fires for whether they're passionate about something are also in these boxes. And the color of both the box and the box border change over time and get lighter and lighter the more skilled the person is in that skill. So this person has 9 skill in arts, which is fairly decent. So I don't want to take them off of doing art now. So they'll, yeah. Also here, of course it manually decides what people will do. I don't want a person with only 4 doctoring and no passion doing doctoring. I want the passionate person doing it. And I think the reason it auto-assigned that was because Evan here has fewer things that he's assigned to do already. I also, you know what, you're not growing, but I will put you on plant cutting and harvesting so that we have an extra pair of hands on that. Is anybody... Oh yes, somebody is idle. Evan is idle. What does Evan do again? Oh. Evan's a grower who's not assigned to plant cutting. You, I'm gonna take off plant cut. So, actually, since Evan's a grower, I'm actually gonna start growing things. So I'm trying specifically to get the rich soil here, which can be a little bit hard to pick out. I kind of wish that lower left overlay were still there when I open up the architect. That would make this easier. But for now, I'm just going to drag this out, and then I'm going to delete sections of the zone as needed. I'm pausing here because I don't want them to start growing yet. I want to first actually change what's going to get grown here. As long as I still have this zone selected, I can essentially add on to it. If I don't have the zone selected, it will make a new zone. But I only want to grow on fertile soil if I can help it. Wait, is that... I don't think that's... Yeah, that's gravel. Or rich soil. Oh, this is gravel too. The transition sometimes makes it hard to tell. Okay, these two are gravel, that's also gravel. riveting, I know. Oh. Okay, and then rich soil, soil. This is also rich soil. Okay. I think I've got all of it. If not, I'll figure it out later. So, by default, it'll grow potatoes here, which are a decent crop, but when you're dealing with rich soil, potatoes generally aren't the best things to grow. So, notice all the little eyes next to all the things I can select to grow. This will give me their information tab, which I may or may not have mentioned before. Every single thing in this game pretty much has an information tab with lots of useful info on it. So when it comes to plants, the interesting things to look at are the fertility requirement and the fertility sensitivity, as well as the growing time and the nutrition. Those are the main things which determine what you want to grow. So rice is a crop that has a higher fertility sensitivity than potatoes do and grows quite quickly. I believe if you plant rice in regular soil, potatoes are slightly better, but if you're planting in fertile soil, then potatoes are slightly worse. And that nutrition, I don't remember, I believe that's per unit, but each plant gives multiple units. I could be wrong on that. That could also be the number of food units. Actually, yeah, I think it's the number of food units you get per plant. Although it's not a fraction. I don't know how exactly the calculation works. One little note on the growing time, this 3 days, that is 3 days worth of time actually spent growing. At night, plants will not grow, so that won't actually be done in 3 days. It will just be 3 days worth of daytime that it will grow. So, select rice here, and that's going to grow rice. And I'll go through the other growing things as we get to them. The main reason I'm putting the rice here is because I like to have the things that grow quickly and will thus have to be attended to often very close to wherever my people are living. Now then, let's see, am I forgetting anything before I move on to power? I don't believe so. I may want to expand the living area a little bit. Also, if I were in a more severe climate, another main consideration right now would be temperature. But since this is a mild climate, I don't have to worry too much right now about things being too hot or too cold. Alright, so I'm going to start setting up power, because power is needed for a lot of different types of production. And generally you want to use up open space to make power in. Now where do I want to first set up my power production is the question. There's a consideration here in terms of aesthetics and defense. As you may have noticed earlier, on the needs tab there is a beauty requirement, which is basically based on the average beauty of all the things around a person. And if I go down here, this in the lower right is a bunch of various UI overlays. And if I toggle the environment display, it will show me how beautiful an area is based on what square somebody is standing in. It basically takes all of the squares that are shown with numbers and averages them to determine the beauty of the area. And generally, many types of things that you store, as well as many types of industrial or defensive things will have negative beauty amounts, so I don't want them too close. They can also be used as cover and get damaged when there's fights going on. So I also want them in a place where they'll ideally be out of the way of a fight, which is obviously a bit difficult to manage. Generally, either you want to go for solar first or a fueled generator first. The fuel generator is nice because it will just provide constant power as long as you're feeding it wood. And yeah, I'm actually going to go with a fuel generator. And I like to run my power conduits through walls as much as possible because it protects them and because it means they don't negatively impact beauty at all. And I think I will cut this episode here. And when we come back, that generator will be built and we'll continue. See you then.